Spa delivered total chaos this weekend, with the biggest headaches starting well before any wheels turned. Race bosses decided to push back the start time, creating serious frustration for racers, particularly Max Verstappen. Many teams went with big wing packages thinking wet weather would stick around, but the delayed beginning made these choices totally pointless. Christian Horner was nowhere near Spa this weekend, spotted out on horseback instead of being trackside. Weather forecasts promised rain throughout the weekend, with Sunday supposed to bring the worst storms. The F3 support event became nearly unwatchable due to terrible conditions, while F2 continued despite heavy downpours that nearly shut everything down. Red Bull's weekend delivered mixed results for their pair of drivers. Yuki Tsunoda expressed frustration after Saturday's strong performance didn't continue. Issues began when his mechanics called him into the pits just as he passed the entrance, creating an impossible situation. Laurent Mekies had transferred the latest floor components from Max's spare car to Tsunoda's vehicle, which performed brilliantly yesterday but offered no advantage in today's difficult circumstances. Hamilton began race day with a thoughtful gesture, visiting the Mercedes garage to speak with Kimi, likely attempting to lift his spirits after their poor qualifying session. Following this, Hamilton accepted a 60-place grid penalty, allowing Mercedes to implement major modifications, including fresh suspension components, wing adjustments, and a brand new power unit. Since he would start from the pit lane regardless after his qualifying mistake and track boundary violation, the squad seized this opportunity to swap nearly everything possible. Mercedes technicians assembled Hamilton's machine with maximum wing configurations, expecting wet conditions to persist and allow him to climb through the field. His early stint looked fantastic, slicing through positions with flawless technique during the opening phases. However, when track surfaces improved quicker than anticipated due to the extended delay, this wet weather configuration became a massive hindrance rather than an asset. Strategic decisions regarding car configurations became complicated because teams couldn't predict whether officials would actually begin the event or continue waiting. This uncertainty influenced teams' wing selections, with Mercedes applying the same high downforce logic for Antonelli's vehicle. Esteban Ocon's machine carried much less downforce than Ollie Behrman's configuration, leading many to believe Ocon would struggle initially. An amusing grid scene occurred when Jos Verstappen faced Nico Rosberg's direct questioning. Rosberg pressed Jos about his previous statements regarding Horner's position at Red Bull, asking directly about wanting the team principal removed. Jos's reluctance to engage and repeated no-comment responses spoke volumes, suggesting his involvement in earlier controversy. Racing activity encountered issues immediately due to slick track conditions. The initial formation lap revealed dangerous circumstances, prompting officials to halt proceedings with red flags. This decision likely stemmed from knowing that weather windows would provide racing opportunities within roughly 60 minutes, allowing them to complete the event without excessive complications. Norris mentioned he couldn't see properly even while following the safety car, highlighting the primary safety concern. Current aerodynamic regulations designed to direct airflow upward rather than directly backward accidentally generated massive spray clouds during wet sessions. Combined with Pirelli's inadequate wet compounds, these factors made overtaking extremely difficult. Driver radio communications revealed varying perspectives on track circumstances. Leclerc described surface conditions as awful, while Verstappen criticized the overly cautious method after learning about the stoppage, arguing that brief running would improve conditions before heavier precipitation arrived. Spa's unique location generates additional challenges for officials making decisions. While the circuit remains excellent for most racing categories, Formula One has struggled to produce thrilling competition there over the past decade. This stems from F1-specific issues rather than circuit problems, but the outcome remains poor. Previous accidents at Red Bull contribute to extra caution from officials, which makes sense, but this generates frustration among spectators and drivers who consider the method excessive. Radio transmissions from various drivers highlighted the visibility problem. Tsunoda, among others, reported he couldn't see anything due to spray conditions. Notably, veteran drivers like Hamilton, Alonso, and Hülkenberg remained silent during these exchanges, possibly reflecting their familiarity with harsher past conditions and significantly more dangerous machines. One factor behind the lengthy delay involved avoiding the 3-hour race completion window. By not officially beginning, race control prevented the countdown timer from starting, theoretically permitting later restarts without time restriction concerns. Whether this 3-hour regulation serves any genuine purpose remains debatable, but it affected today's decisions. Weather predictions indicated improving conditions roughly 45 minutes after the scheduled start time, with officials preparing accordingly. The frustrating aspect involved continued delays even after precipitation ceased. Once rainfall ended and no additional weather threatened, competition should have commenced immediately rather than waiting extra minutes for track enhancement. These extended delays effectively altered race outcomes by rendering teams' strategic decisions worthless. Hamilton and Antonelli, beginning from the pit lane with maximum downforce setups, discovered their wet weather advantages negated by the artificial pause. Many drivers selected similar methods, anticipating extended wet conditions that never materialized due to management decisions rather than natural circumstances. Officials also modified formation protocols, increasing the minimum gap behind safety cars from 10 car lengths to 20, presumably addressing visibility concerns specific to this circuit. This represented another significant procedural adjustment implemented right before competition. When racing eventually began, sunshine had emerged despite ongoing track moisture. A standing start remained feasible rather than the rolling restart ultimately selected, representing another conservative decision that may have unnecessarily restricted racing excitement. Safety car withdrawal occurred around lap 4, with Oscar Piastri immediately seizing the race lead through the opening corners. Norris experienced issues with rear traction exiting La Source, providing Piastri the opening he required. Piastri's swift maneuver demonstrated remarkable racing instinct, recognizing this as his primary opportunity for victory and executing it with complete determination up Red Elan, while Norris adopted a more cautious method given his history at that location. Piastri's reduced downforce setup compared to Norris functioned well regardless of circumstances, while his bold method during the crucial opening phase secured track position that would prove decisive. Like his Baku performance, Piastri delivered when situations demanded total commitment. Hamilton's progress through the pack provided the race's most thrilling action. Beginning from 18th position, he rapidly overtook Sainz and numerous other drivers with superb passing displays. This segment showcased both Hamilton's incredible wet weather abilities and hinted at optimism regarding Ferrari's recent progress, which appeared more promising than yesterday's performance indicated. Leclerc's defensive efforts against Verstappen appeared impressive, though Max clearly possessed superior pace that proved impossible to utilize effectively due to his high downforce setup. Spa's overtaking limitations became evident even with many cars out of sequence, with Hamilton achieving most successful passing maneuvers during wet conditions thanks to superior grip and braking confidence. Hamilton's pit stop timing functioned perfectly, switching to medium compounds just as specific track sections began drying. This generated a powerful undercut impact, advancing him significantly through the field during the tyre change phase. Piastri followed one lap afterward upon witnessing Hamilton's successful strategy. Norris remained out an additional lap, damaging his position, but possibly unavoidable given McLaren's pit wall coordination. The team selected hard compounds for Norris, hoping to achieve strategic advantage through tyre longevity. Meanwhile, fierce battles emerged in the midfield with Verstappen, Ocon, Leclerc and Russell fighting within extremely narrow margins following Verstappen's slower pit service. Hamilton continued setting quickest sectors initially, advancing to 7th position and appearing capable of additional progress. Nevertheless, the fundamental issue emerged that his high downforce setup became severely restrictive once conditions dried. He endured major straight-line speed penalties, losing significant time to Albon despite following in the slipstream down Blanchimont. Despite superior pace, Spa's overtaking restrictions proved impossible to overcome for Hamilton and many others. The circuit's characteristics effectively trapped quicker cars behind slower machines, preventing the position changes that speed advantages would normally facilitate. Norris's hard compound strategy exposed Pirelli's tyre selection problems. The weekend featured C4 soft, C3 medium, and C1 hard compounds, with the C1 apparently intended for one-stop strategies while C3 encouraged multiple stops. However, the medium compound proved far more durable than expected, with Piastri and many others completing roughly 30 laps without significant wear concerns. This durability seemed excessive for a supposedly softer medium compound, particularly considering the substantial performance difference to the hard option. Piastri's compounds appeared usable at race conclusion, suggesting Pirelli miscalculated compound characteristics for this specific weekend. Observing Piastri's successful one-stop strategy, Norris pushed frantically to reduce the deficit, driving at absolute maximum attack intensity. This generated several mistakes, including lockups and a significant moment at Perhan as he explored the ultimate performance boundaries. While critics might highlight these errors, excluding the initial start incident, none would have provided sufficient advantage for overtaking given Spa's inherent difficulties and the minimal compound performance difference. Hamilton received constant fuel-saving instructions, lifting and coasting extensively throughout his stint. This prevented potential advancement past Albon and highlighted Ferrari's ongoing efficiency issues. Leclerc, meanwhile, produced exceptional defensive driving to contain Verstappen's superior pace throughout their extended battle. Sainz unfortunately missed optimal pit timing and found himself trapped in strategic no-man's land without sufficient pace to affect proceedings. Piastri received encouraging updates about compound condition and successfully managed his compounds to the finish. Despite Norris's attacking recovery efforts and gap reduction, overtaking Piastri remained impossible. Even if Norris had avoided his late race mistakes while pushing hard, the compound performance difference proved too minimal for a successful move. Given Hamilton's inability to pass Albon at widespread DRS train formations throughout the field, Piastri's victory appeared secure regardless of other developments. The final standings showed Piastri winning ahead of Norris and Leclerc, extending Piastri's championship advantage to 16 points after losing ground in recent rounds. This establishes a solid buffer heading toward the summer break, though Hungarian Grand Prix expectations might favor different competitive dynamics. Verstappen's inability to overtake Leclerc restricted him to fourth place, while Hamilton's impressive drive unfortunately yielded only sixth due to fuel conservation requirements and aerodynamic restrictions behind the Williams. Russell secured fifth despite struggling through middle sector performance, highlighting Mercedes' current mismatch with Spa's specific requirements. Bottas gathered valuable points while Gasly claimed the final scoring position, with Lawson's double points finish proving significant given Tsunoda's disappointing outcome further down the order. Post-race discussions focused heavily on procedural decisions and timing controversies. Verstappen expressed strong views about the excessive delays, suggesting competition should have begun roughly 1 hour earlier than actually occurred. He acknowledged that different strategic decisions would have emerged with advanced knowledge of limited wet running, emphasizing how management choices affected competitive outcomes. The championship standings reflect these Belgian Grand Prix results, with major consequences heading toward the summer break and subsequent Hungarian round. The weekend ultimately demonstrated both outstanding individual performances and systematic problems regarding race management under challenging conditions.